I found the oldest pilgrimage site in the whole of Great Britain. I am at Holywell in North Wales, which goes back 1,300 years. These waters have miraculous healing properties. Looking at this spring, it's still so active, and it's been active for the last 1,300 years. Since Winifride was brought back to life, this well has been here. The British Isles is absolutely steeped in Christian history and tradition. We have many sites all throughout Great Britain that has an absolute richness in history. And today I found the oldest pilgrimage site in the whole of Great Britain. I am at Holywell in North Wales, which goes back 1,300 years. Yes, let me tell you that again. 1,300 years this place goes back to. People have been coming here for that length of time to honour and to venerate Saint Winifride. So why do people come here to this holy place? Not just because it's the oldest pilgrimage site in the whole of Great Britain. There is something very special here just behind me. So I encourage you, journey with me today as I explore these sacred grounds. You know, it's just me here at the moment. There's nobody else here at this site. But one of my first impressions that I'm experiencing here is the deep peace. As I reflect upon these buildings, hundreds of years these buildings have been here, I can't help but think about the prayers, all the petitions that have been left here through the years. You know, as I mentioned, people have been coming here for 1,300 years. One of the remarkable things about this place is the fact it survived so long. If you remember, the Protestant Reformation was going on in the mid-1500s, and that meant that any holy site would have been destroyed. It would have been burnt to the ground. So the fact that this has survived is amazing. And what's even more remarkable is, even during that time, pilgrims would come from all around Great Britain, risking their lives to pray here. Can you imagine that? In the Reformation times, it was illegal to be Catholic. You could have been put to death. But people, because of their faith in Jesus Christ, took that risk to come here and leave their intentions. In and around the year 630, Winifred, a very, very beautiful young girl, lived here with her uncle. Her uncle was a man named Bino, who was also an abbot, and they lived here in a house near a chapel that he had built. Now, Bino was responsible for Winifred. He was responsible for her care, and he was also responsible for instructing her in the spiritual life. Winifred's sole desire was to dedicate her whole life to God and eventually enter a monastery and become a nun. In entering the monastery, she had hoped to spend the rest of her life in prayer. However, one Sunday, Winifred found herself all alone in her house whilst Bino was down at the church serving the Mass. Riding past on a horse was a local prince named Caradog, and he stopped at the house of Winifred to ask for a drink of water. Winifred was a very beautiful young girl, and when Caradog came to her house and laid eyes on her, he was straight away moved by her beauty. So much so that he propositioned her right there and then on the spot. Winifred refused his advances. This made Caradog very angry, so much so that he forced himself on Winifred. Again, Winifred was able to fight him off and she struggled free. And she ran towards the church where her uncle was serving. Caradog was not long before he caught up with her because he was on his horse. And now, as you can imagine, this young prince was used to getting what he wanted when he wanted. So the fact that Winifred refused his advances, you could say that this was a big blow to his pride. His ego was wounded. So he caught up with Winifred, he grabbed her, he took out his sword, and he chopped off her head right there and then. And as the story goes, her head rolled along the ground all the way to the church. And the exact place where her head landed, a spring, a well of water sprung forth from the ground. Now, back to the story. Her uncle Bino left the church, came outside, and he realized what had happened. His beloved niece, whose head was there before him. So he picked up the head, he got the body, and being a man of prayer, he brought it into the church. He joined the head back to the body and he began to pray out loud. He began to pray to God that Winifred may come back to life. And it was through the power and the intercession of Bino that miraculously Winifred came back to life. She was made whole. And as you can see here, from the stained glass window, we have Winifred. And she's bearing the scar on her neck. The thread-like scar is still there for us to see. And apparently, she was bearing this scar for the rest of her life. And thank God, Winifred's wish that she had as a little girl to become a nun was granted. She was able to dedicate the rest of her life to God. she entered a monastery and became a nun, where she also became abbess. And just here, I've got Saint Bino, her uncle, who lived on these lands, on this holy ground. And apparently later on in his life, he went to Ireland where he became a missionary. Maybe that's why he's wearing green here. As you're about to see, the spring that I mentioned is still here today. And that's why this place, St. Winifride's Well, is the centre of a renowned pilgrimage. Let's go inside to check it out. So here we are at the well, and it's incredible to be sitting here looking at this spring. It's still so active, and it's been active for the last 1300 years. Since Winifred was brought back to life, this well has been here. And the reason that people have come here for over 1,000 years is because they come here looking for healing. If you remember the start of this program, I said there's something very special about this place. Because believe it or not, these waters have miraculous healing properties. It is incredible, the testimonies of the people that have come here and been cured. The blind have been able to see again. The crippled, the lame have entered these waters. They have immersed themselves in these waters and they've been able to walk away. Imagine the miracles, the prayers that have taken place here. That's why people risked their lives throughout the Protestant Reformation to make their way to this holy well. And it's because of this miraculous healing waters that we can see today that this place, Holy Well, is known as the Lords of Wales. Now we've come to the moment on today's episode that you're probably all really excited about. But let me tell you, I am definitely not as excited as you. In Wales today, it's windy, it's rainy, and it's cold. And I have to get into these waters. If you followed along on my journey so far, you can probably tell that I'm in need of a little bit of healing. And so therefore, I have to get into these healing waters. But I am definitely not looking forward to it. St. Winifred and St. Bino, pray for me. Now, in case you were worried, I'm okay. I'm cold, but I've showered. I've put on my clothes again, but I'm definitely looking forward to that hot chocolate on the way home to warm me up. But, you know, I'm so glad that I went into them waters. And you know, when I got out of the water, and when I stood by the well and looked back into it, The story that came to mind was the one from the Bible that you probably heard about, the story about the Samaritan woman meeting Jesus at Jacob's well. Now, if you remember the story, according to customs at the time, a Samaritan woman would never have been able to spend time with and speak with a Jewish man in Jesus. Now, this woman came to the well late in the day, when it was actually the hottest part of the day. She came to the well at this time of the day because she wanted to avoid meeting people. She was probably too full of shame to look anybody in the eye. Because if you remember her story, she had had many worldly lovers, lots of worldly lovers. So we can only imagine the inadequacy that she felt. But can you imagine the shock that she got when a Jewish man, Jesus, asks her for a drink of water? The Samaritan woman's conversation with Jesus exposed the deep secrets that she had hidden in her heart. It opened up her pain and her shame, and she was set free. Jesus' gaze rips straight through her shame and touches her heart. We too, like the Samaritan woman, have that same burning question at the bottom of our own hearts. Am I loved? Does my life matter to anybody? Does my life at least matter to someone? And like the Samaritan woman, and like I've discovered in my own life, Jesus is the only answer to our deep thirst to be known and our deep thirst to be seen. Do not doubt the desire of the Lord to bring freedom into your life. Yes, healing is a process, freedom is a process, but that process starts right here, right now. I encourage you, open your heart and invite Jesus in. Invite him into your pain. Invite him into your discomfort. Invite him into your disappointment. Get to the root of discouragement in your own life and let him in there to do in you what you cannot do yourself. Why? Because believe it or not, Jesus wants your freedom more than you want your freedom. Brothers and sisters, God desires all of us. So I encourage you, don't hold back. Jesus set the Samaritan woman free to love again. And he wants to do the same with you. Open your heart and invite him in and see what happens. You will not be disappointed. My name is Niall McDonagh, and from everyone here at a very cold Shalom World, God bless you all.